Wonderful. Thank you, everybody. Hello and welcome to Improving Time Management While Working from Home with Sophie Lemieux. In an unbelievably short period of time, our lives have been dramatically transformed. Globally, we're dealing with uncertainty over every aspect of life. At Concordia Alumni, we have been incredibly fortunate to be able to transition to this new reality and shift all of our events to virtual programs. The university also as a whole has put a lot of work into figuring out how to manage the health and safety of approximately 60,000 faculty, staff, and students. Our thanks go out to healthcare workers and all those working selflessly to surmount this crisis on the front lines. We are also hearing from members of our alumni community asking how they can support students during this difficult time. And currently, the greatest area of need is the economic, physical, and mental well-being of our students. Concordia announced the launch of a $500,000 COVID-19 emergency student relief fund to help alleviate the economic hardships of our students. So if you are in a position to support the Student Relief Fund, you can do so at the link on the screen, engage.concordia.ca/donate or at concordia.ca/COVID-19 support. And the designation is the COVID-19 Emergency Student Relief Fund. You can also make a difference by volunteering with Concordia Live to help seniors combat social isolation, among other volunteer opportunities through the CU Cares Alumni Volunteer Program. And so with all that said, we are so pleased to welcome you today. Thank you so much for joining us this morning or this afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from in the world. This session is hosted by Concordia University's Alumni Relations as part of our See You at Home virtual programming series. My name is Olivia Picciarelli, and I'm the Alumni Officer of External Partnerships at Concordia University. I will be moderating the chat environment and relaying your questions to our speaker. Also joining today is my colleague from Concordia Continuing Education, Evelyn Boivin, Digital Marketing Specialist. I encourage you all to learn more about CCE by checking them out online and to connect with them on social media. Hi, Evelyn.
Hi, Olivia. Thank you again for this great opportunity. Thank you for with the alumni. I'm 100% confident that you will be pleased to spend the next 60 minutes with Sophie Lemieux, one of our superstar trainer at Continuing Education. And Sophie teaches many of our workshops, and we feel very lucky to count her on our team. Thank you, Olivia, and thank you, Sophie, again.
Thank you so much. So for some housekeeping, I know at this point you've joined us before, and I'm sure everyone participating today are pros with Zoom, but just for your information, we are recording this session and we'll share it with you in the coming weeks. And now a little bit of housekeeping. So the chat box where you all commented yes will be the primary function of communication between you and our speaker. So all of the comments and questions that you share with us in the chat box will be relayed to our speaker throughout the webinar and towards the end. So this session is designed for your learning and enjoyment, so we appreciate your active participation throughout. And now a little bit about our speaker. Sophie Lemieux has over 20 years of experience in organizational performance management, coaching, multidisciplinary team management, project management, training, and business development. Sophie is a lecturer at Concordia and has been collaborating with the team at Concordia Continuing Education to develop various seminar offerings. She is well-versed in management best practices and teaches various leadership skills such as how to become a person of influence, time management, team synergy, creative leadership, and delegation. Her positive attitude and dynamism make her learning fun, which we'll all get to see today. Sophie has been awarded the 2015 Recognition Award from the Chartered Administrators of Quebec. Today, she will guide us through proven time management methods that will allow us to become aware of our interruptions, clearly define our priorities, and plan our days more effectively and efficiently. So let's jump right in, and I'll hand it back over to you, Sophie.
Thank you very much. Wow, what a great introduction. I'm blushing. Thank you all. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. So thank you also, Evelyn and Olivia, for this nice opportunity. So I have a small amount of time to go through time management, and believe me, I can go on for more than 7 hours on the topic. There are so many things to think about, and I've tried to collect my best subject topics for you today. So we only have not even 30 minutes now to go to it together. So I've designed it for with 3 segments. So our first segment will be mostly about reflecting or thinking about time and energy. I'll talk to you about it later on. Then we'll talk about what has changed now, the remote work and planning, what has changed and what are the tips and tools I can provide you with. And we'll conclude with priorities and how we can assess priorities. And so I have 2 nice also tips and tools for you. So I will stop after each segment to take your questions. So Olivia, like she mentioned, she will ask me whatever questions you have. So again, I'll do that after each segment. So let's go. I'm sure you're ready and looking forward to this seminar. So first thing, well, around the world, have you ever thought that everyone, every single one of us is equal in times of time? So each and every one of us, we have 86,400 seconds. Nobody has more, nobody has less. Well, I mean, of course, your last day of life, but in normal times, everyone has the same amount of money. So time is finite. You cannot have more time, you cannot create time, you cannot sell time, because even if you delegate or if you hire someone to do things for you, you still have to manage that, you still have to manage the contract, you still have, so there are things that will require your time anyways. So we have a finite amount of time, so we can look at it in terms of a budget. So the only thing where you have control is the spending of the time. And mathematically, it has to add up. So when we look at it, and maybe you admire people around the world, and maybe you admire other people close by that have 5 kids and have 3 jobs and are on multiple boards, and they volunteer, and so you look at people around you and you're like, oh my God, how do they do it? Well, yeah, how do they do it? How do they do it? And I'm going to share you something. I'm going to have fun with you guys. I mean, with the introduction that they've provided me with, I'm going to have fun with you. So why some people, I'm looking for a word. So we're doing the Hangman. Why some people around the world or close by can do more with the time they have. So I cannot see the chat. Let me just, yes, I can see the chat. So if you want, you can just give me letters, ask for a letter. A, there's no A. Can I write? There's no A in the word. Oh my God, it goes fast. There's an E, let me just see. There's an I. Here, what are
I've
the
seen
letters?
O.
Yeah, there's an O. There's
An
no
R.
B, there's no B, there's no T, there's no R. I'm looking for a word. There's a C. Oh, now it's gonna be easy. What is the word I'm looking for? Come on, I'm sure you got it. What is the word? Choice. Thank you very much. The first one that I can see it is Guido. So thank you, or Chantal also. So yes, it is the word choice, and you won't forget it. You won't forget this word, not only because it was fun playing the Hangman, but you won't forget the word because, let me just go back to my presentation. You won't forget the word because it is all a matter of choice. So time management is all a matter of choice. You cannot create time, you cannot donate time, you can donate actions, but it will require yourself to be involved. Everyone has the same amount of time, and yet you have to make a choice. So some people, if we relate with time budget, financial budget, you can always increase the income, right? By having another job or having a promotion, changing careers, you can increase your income. Time, it is finite. I already said that. Some people will spend $5 every day at Tim Hortons, Second Cup, Starbucks, whatever, every day, and they appreciate it. And others will keep that and spend their money on a trip. For example, they'll accumulate their money. Well, time is exactly the same essence. You have to choose at each moment. You have to choose if you're doing the right thing at the right time. So before jumping into action, before jumping into your day, you have to stop and think, what do I want to do with my time? How do I want to spend this 86,400 seconds that I have? So you're spending it various amount of time, but you have to reflect and think about it. What do you want to do? And it must balance, because at the end of the day, like I said, you cannot create more. So we did do the hangman already. So it brings me also to another philosophy, another concept to keep in mind, the energy level. And I'm talking about your brain power. In French, we would say jus de cerveau, but you know, the brain power, when you have your energy levels at the maximum. So I guess if you think about it, it changes, it varies throughout the day, right? So your percentage of efficiency in the morning, for some of you, you need 10 coffees before being efficient, and others, right away when you wake up, you feel the brain power and you're ready to go on with your day. So it varies according to, well, yourself, of course, but the time of day, the month, the season, the amount of project, the stress levels. So your energy levels varies throughout the day. But we see a lot of people, when they have a lot of energy, what do you guys do, or what the majority of people do? Well, they just jump on the first thing that happens. So they answer 10,000 emails, text those, and they feel alive, you know? So the energy level is there, and wow, they're answering things and feeling marvelous, because in their minds, they have solved 10,000 problems. But if you think about it, when time comes, when you have something that requires your concentration, something's a little harder to do, well, now your energy level is down because you've spent it on those small stuff. So you have to figure out what is your energy level at all time, and try to match what takes you the most energy with your energy levels, instead of rushing and doing stuff right away. So making sure throughout the day you make that match between your energy level and the task you need to complete will save you a lot of time. Because when your energy level is down, what happens? Normally you yawn, you lack creativity, you will read 2 or 3 times the same line. And then people say, you know what, I'm not even taking breaks. I work hard, I work 12 hours a day. Oh, I work so hard, I don't take breaks, I eat at my desk, my lunch. People tend to think that they're so important by doing that, and they're so efficient by doing that. Well, let me tell you something. If you take your breaks, and I'm not the first one to tell you that, it's not new news. If you take your breaks, but really good breaks, 10-minute breaks, without looking at screens, because we know now that, I don't know if you felt it, but since we're working from home remotely, we're really much more into dealing with their computer. We're more tired. So screens tend to get you more tired, because people say, I'll take a break, but then they go on their phones and they stay on the screens, which is not a nice way to get your energy levels up. So taking nice breaks are really efficient. And for those of you that say, oh, I can't take breaks, I don't have the time to take breaks, well, let me tell you a secret. Your brain will take a break regardless. When the brain is tired, the brain will take a break. It's just that you'll stay at your screen. Like I said, you'll read twice the lines, your emails, you'll lack creativity, and your break will even be longer than if you've taken a real break. So people think, oh, I'm not taking breaks, I don't have time for taking breaks. Well, your brain will take a break. It's just going to last longer before your energy level comes back. So taking nice 10-minute breaks without screens is really also recommended. And let's go with our last part of this first segment. Let's think about the time. So let's say that I want to send 10 envelopes. So I have 10 letters to mail. So I have two ways of doing it. First, I can fold 10 sheets of papers. Then I can put each sheet in 10 envelopes. Then I can seal 10 envelopes and I can stamp 10 envelopes. So we'll call it the method, the bulk method. So again, I fold 10 sheets. I put each sheet in a single envelope. I seal 10 envelopes and I stamp 10 envelopes. Method A. Let's look at method B, one by one. So I fold one letter. I put it in an envelope. I seal an envelope and I stamp. Again, I fold one paper in an envelope, seal the envelope, stamp. Method B. So again, method A, the bulk one, I fold 10 sheets, 10 envelopes. Or B, one by one. So I'll complete, I finish one letter and then start the other one. Or C, the question is, both methods are the same, okay? So I'm gonna poll you. So you should see right now in your screen, wait a second. Okay, so you should see on your screen my poll. So what is the fastest method? And you can answer right now. A, bulk method, 10 sheets, 10 envelopes, 10 sealed, 10 stamps. B, one at a time. C, probably the same. So we're 50% of you voted right now, 60, 65, 70%, again, 75%. So again, bulk method, one by one, or C, both the same. So I guess I'll stop the poll. 80% of you voted, which is a really great participation. Thank you. So let me share the results. So 63%, 89 people said A, bulk method. Only 8% said B, one by one, and 30% were safe and said both are the same. You're my favorite group. Wow, I'm so happy because you got it wrong. The right answer is B, one by one. And I'm sure some of you are saying, no, I don't believe her. No way, that's the fastest method. It is. A study has been done by engineers, and you can even Google it if you want. It's called 10 envelopes or something like that. You'll find, the study that has been done. And believe me, I do it with my participants in my webinar, when we were in class. And there is a 20% difference. One by one is faster by 20% of time. So even a small task like that, it is faster 20%, so we save about a minute when we do the exercise in class. Why? Well, there are two things to remember. First, our brain is really not good at estimating time. If I ask you yesterday how much time you spent on doing this or that, you'll probably have a basic idea. If I ask you how much time it will take you to do something, chances are it will take you double of the time. So you have to remember that your brain is not good at estimating the time. Einstein once said, so Albert Einstein said, 1 hour spent sitting on a bench beside a beautiful girl seems to be 1 minute, and 1 minute on a burning stove seems to feel like an hour. So we're not good at estimating the time. So in time management, that's the first thing we learned from that study. And the other thing is also, at the end of the day, people are more satisfied if they've completed 3 letters instead of folding 10 papers. So you've completed 3 tasks instead of starting something and you can't see the end of it. Of course, though, something important to remember is until you've monitored the time it takes, you have no idea how long it will take you. And I also teach with big classes of students, and I have sometimes big exams to correct, and I've been saving 1 day just by changing my method. So doing 1 exam at a time instead of going all question 1, all question 2, all question 3, and monitor it, and you'll see that it is really faster because you're in the exam. And so regardless of what you do, monitor your things and then find the best method to be able to save time. And you'll save a lot of time just by changing the way you do things. So it was my first segment. So let me just take a few moments to see if you have any questions. So Olivia, I'm counting on you.
Yes, we do have some questions, and we got lots of feedback from the poll. Lots of people who don't believe you, but we'll come back to that. So Lynn says that when it comes to her mental energy, she has the most mental energy in the evening, where she has the most physical energy in the morning. Is that normal? And is there a time of day where it's best to have more mental energy?
No, I mean, it's personal. It's so personal. It's so depends on you. You have to know yourself. And believe me, it will change also over your life, depending on your situation, if you have kids or not, depending on your job, your schedule. It varies, it changes. But there's no right or wrong. I mean, you have to know yourself. And time management is so personal. It's a personalized method, and you can't adopt someone else's way of working. You really have to understand how you function and then try to find ways to work better. So if you have your energy level at night and you can have the chance to work at night, well, good, and try to change your schedule around if it's possible. If not, well, maybe try to change your schedule in terms of sleeping habits and stuff like that.
Kathleen and Aphrodite asked at the exact same time, how often should we be taking breaks throughout the day?
Again, it depends on you. When you feel your brain starting to slow down and you're reading twice the same lines and you feel you're not creative, it's time for a break. So sometimes you can have one break in the morning and it will be fine, and other times it will take you longer breaks. But let me tell you though, from my online experience, I've been teaching online for a long time, and after 50 minutes, I would say that the brain is really tired. So typically, for example, when I teach a 3-hour class, I take breaks every 50 minutes. So that would be the general rule in terms of being online. But other than that, listen to make sure you connect and you understand, am I tired now? My brain power, is it down? And do I need then to take a break just to be okay? 10 minutes, but really without the screens. Okay, and maybe a last question before we continue.
Yeah. So Chantal asks about the poll, the envelope stuffing. Does this mean that doing one task at a time is more efficient than multitasking? Say, one task and doing emails at the same time.
It all depends. Until you've monitored it, your brain will probably evaluate it wrong. So I would recommend time it. So take a timer, time it. But of course, you have to think that if you're being concentrated on one email, answering it, every time you decide to do something else, well, you're not being concentrated anymore. So you lose a lot of time just by, can I use the word, reconcentrating on something else? So you have to understand that it has an impact. But my best tip would be monitor it, because your brain is not good at estimating it. And that creates a lot of things that you don't know about right now. It is a real study. It is scientific. I haven't told you that, but I have a bachelor in science. So it is scientific. It's been done by engineers, and I also do it in every classroom. And method B is always the fastest one by 20%. So you have to think about that.
Sounds good. Everyone, if you didn't get your question asked, we will have more question periods throughout. So don't worry, we will be asking Sophie. Sophie, if you'd like to get back.
Excellent, thank you. So let me go with what has changed now that we're working remote. Well, probably you're more interrupted in with your personal life. So probably you have your kids, your spouse, your or even people, your boss may be interrupting you more often. Thinking that, are you working? So the insecurity as well has created more interruptions. And people think that, for example, when they were working in offices, they probably didn't go every second asking something to someone, but right now they feel because they're at home, they can send an email whenever they want. So interruptions has increased a lot. Your schedule may have changed. So like I said, maybe your kids are at home and you have to be a little bit more working at night if you can. So maybe your schedule has changed, and now instead of having 5 days 9 to 5, you're maybe looking at 7 days 9 to 10 or 8 to 10 at night, and just having to replan differently. So things have changed. We're also more into short-term planning right now because of the COVID. We don't know know what will happen. So we used to be able to plan long term, and now more and more we find that we're confronted with short term. So our weeks are harder to schedule, and what's coming up next week changes more rapidly, even though we're not into the crisis more mode, because that was at the beginning of the crisis of the COVID. Right now we're really at being, again, short-term planning. We don't know what's going to happen, and things change rapidly. So I said it, more emails, more video conferences. So it takes up a lot of energy, a lot of time. You know, phones still exist, and people tend to forget it. Sometimes a small phone call may do the job. So we have to remember that our world has changed, and we have to also look at our habits. Am I sending more emails? Am I interrupting people? Because emails are interruptions. When you're sending an email to someone, you're interrupting this person in what they were supposed to be doing. So an email, in a way, is a great way to communicate. In another way, it creates other problems. But I could go on with emails. It's so I mean, I could spend a whole seminar just on emails. So let's get the ball rolling. Interruptions. So you have to be aware of interruptions. So you remember I told you that we don't know exactly what we did yesterday. So if I ask you, how many interruptions did you have in your day yesterday? Chances are you don't remember a lot. You'll probably underestimate it, but according to, because I've been giving this training a lot of time, and people tell me that they're interrupted, and an interruption is something that is not planned. So emails are interruptions because you haven't planned how many emails you will receive today on what topic, so they're interruptions. Phone calls, unforeseen meetings. So what is causing your interruptions? And people don't have that data. It's in their minds, but like I said, our mind is tricky and plays tricks on us. So really, what is distracting you? What takes you up your time and is not planned, and what can you plan? So it is really important to think about that. And to help you, I have a tool for you. So what I would recommend is using a logbook. What is a logbook? Well, a plain and simple table. So it could be Word, Excel, it could be a notepad, doesn't matter, whatever fits with you. So first exercise that I would recommend for the next 5 days, take note of every interruptions, but go as granular as you need to, meaning that you don't need to write every email you've received, but you can say, oh, emails, it took me 20 minutes. A phone call with Josephine took me 30 minutes and it wasn't planned. My kids came into asking me about their homework stuff and it wasn't planned. Write every interruptions that you have for the next 5 days. At the end of those 5 days, so that will be your data gathering. Then look at your data and then see what you can come up with corrective actions. So is there a way to plan some of those? Because it hurts less when interruptions are planned. So if one employee, one colleague, someone in your team is sending you 10 emails per day, maybe you should have a 15-minute meeting with them. So plan a 15 minutes a day meeting. If you don't need it, good, you cancel it and you have more time on your day. But if you do need it, well, it will remove all aspects of being interrupted because it will be planned. So planning, and people don't see that, but planning makes you more flexible because you know exactly what you're going to move in your schedule. So planning is really, we can say, added value task. And the more you plan, well, the better, the more flexible you will become. So knowing your interruptions. So for the next 5 days, write your interruptions, the time it takes, then look for corrective actions and try to bring down those interruptions. And also try to use this logbook to assess your planning skills. So for the next 5 days, plan your whole day, let's say in black ink or blue ink, for 5 days, write it down and plan for 5 days. And then look at the end of each day, write with a red marker exactly what happened. So were you able to respect your planning? Was your planning poorly done? Did you plan for interruptions? Plan for interruptions. Yes, you have to plan for interruptions. And people are looking at me, well, I don't know what will be my interactions. I'm sure I'm hearing you think, I don't know what will be my interruptions. No, but you know you'll be interrupted, right? you know you'll be interrupted throughout your day. Why do you plan 8 hours of work if you know you're going to be interrupted 4 out of the 8 hours? Something to think about. Mathematically, it doesn't fit. People over schedule, overbook their planning. So by doing two mistakes, by underestimating the time it takes, and by forgetting that they have interruptions and emergencies. Interruption and emergencies, I merged both of them have the same impact in your planning. They disorganize you. So people have this tendency of not planning enough time to be interrupted and not estimating well the time it will take to do the tasks. So again, you can assess your planning skills by doing this simple exercise for 5 days again. So I would encourage you to redo this exercise every 3 months. So every 3 months, you look for the interruptions and you look for knowing more about your planning skills. Again, going further on interruptions, and you'll be able to read, you'll have the PDF of the presentation, you'll be able to read it. My favorite one, I have two ones that I want to look at those with you. How to avoid interruptions. Well, first thing, when people say they don't want to be interrupted, so when we were in our working space, normal working space, people used to say, well, I can't close my door. Yes, you can. In fact, studies show you need 2 hours per day without interruptions. And some of you are saying, oh my God, 2 hours, it's too much. Well, you have to work, right? So you can split it 2 times 1 hour or 4 half an hours if you prefer. But the important thing is to advise people around you that you need this time to be able to work, to be able to answer their questions, to be able to do your job. So normally, typically, I would suggest put a sign saying, do not interrupt, and put the hours between this hour and this hour. That's the biggest mistake. People say, do not interrupt or do not disturb, but they don't write from what time to what time. So people become insecure and then they knock on your office door and say, can I disturb you? Or until what time can't I disturb you? But they've already disturbed you. So by being at a distance, by working remote, you now have other tools that are being used by organizations. So it could be an automatic email that you send, I won't be available between that time and that time. It could be if you have, let's say, Skype, and you can write when you're available, when you're not available. Try to write the time when you're not available and not being too long so that people don't get uncomfortable. And the other thing that I can also suggest to avoid interruptions is really remove notifications. Notifications were created in early 2000 when people were developing the smartphones, and they wanted to let you know that something interesting was happening online. Because if you remember, for those of you that are old enough like me, at that time, I mean, I didn't understand why would I go on Facebook in the middle of the day, because it wasn't that easy access. So by having the smartphones, they created those notifications that say, hey, something's happening online. So it's disturbing, it's an interruption, it's someone else asking you to spend your time going and see your notifications. So first thing to consider, you will go see your emails every day. You will go on Facebook every day. You will look at your textos every day. In fact, first thing probably you'll do after this webinar is to go and look at your emails or your textos. You probably already did it while I was speaking. So those notifications create a mess in our schedules and they create interruptions. So we prefer to be a little bit more proactive. So when you choose, remember the word choice, when it is the right time to go and look at your emails or to go on Facebook or to look at your textos or whatever, then choose that it is the right time to go and see it. So those are the two tricks that I can also give you to make sure you get the most out of your time. So planning tips, again, just making sure I don't forget anything. Double the time you think it will take to accomplish the task, and chances are it will take that time. So we have a tendency to shorten the time, or it's going to take me half an hour. Monitor it and you'll see it's probably double the time. And if you've done it in less time, yeah, woohoo, you've gained time, and that's really productive, and that's also interesting in terms of time. There's no added value in having poor planning and shortened deadline and shortened timeline if people can't make it. It increases the stress, it makes us do mistakes, and we do work that is not according to the quality that we're used to providing. Plan for interruptions and emergencies. Leave space for it within your schedule. But again, by doing the logbook, you'll be able to decrease interruptions by looking at your habits, looking at what disturbs you, and then finding corrective actions to remove interruptions, to not remove, but to decrease the interruptions. And plan according to your energy level. So already I told you, make sure that when you have your energy, you do things that require a lot of your brain power, concentration, and make sure that when you're more tired, then you do the things that are quick and fun to do, and then instead of wasting your energy on those stuff. So again, I'm coming back to you, Olivia. Do we have any questions? I can see that people are really active.
We do.
I'm not sure I'll be able to answer all of that. Go ahead.
Okay, so Aphrodite asks, do you recommend using blocks of time to deal with emails instead of answering them as they come in?
I would say it depends on you, but if you're concentrated on something and you decide to take your emails, well, at least figure out the email completely. So for example, if it's something easy, respond automatically. If it's something that you've already starting to read it all the way, and then decide when you will do that task. So using the tasks in Outlook, for example, would be something that you reschedule and then you read it. So the tip is to really read only once your emails and act on it and plan for it already in your schedule if it requires a lot amount of work. So depending on you, I said it's so personal. So I don't think that one advice fits for all. But the idea is really, if you've decided to read an email, treat it all the way and then replan it if you can't answer right away.
Okay, great. Masa asks if the envelope study applies to teamwork. So, for example, is it better to delegate individual tasks to team members, or should everybody be working on the same task at the same time and moving on?
Again, you have to monitor it. You have to monitor the two ways because there are other things that can create synergy. So depending if it's like a Toyota versus Ford. It is the same model in terms of the plants and how do we do teamwork. So it depends if it's the same person doing the job. It depends if it's different person. There's no one answer. Really, you have to monitor it. So this exercise shows you that your brain doesn't allow for the right answer. So until you've monitored, you have no idea.
So you actually acknowledged one of our participants, Guido, was asking about the Ford study. So that's great. Thank you. Roberto asks, what are your thoughts on multitasking? I know we touched on it a little bit, but if you can go into a little bit more detail.
Well, again, if you've started something and then you go to something else and then you go to something else and then you go to something else, each time it requires concentration. So if you don't finish those tasks, well, you'll lose a lot of time just by going back and saying, oh, okay, what did I want to say? What did I write? And then reconcentrate again. So we try to avoid being spread all over the place. And for those of you that, when you close your computer, you have 10,000 screens, it's not efficient. So studies show that it's really more important in terms of concentration to finish what you've started, or at least bring it to the maximum you can. Of course, there's always emergencies, unforeseen events. And again, it comes back to the question of choice. You have to choose. So should I stop what I'm doing because what I'm doing is more of a priority? And I'll attack priorities in a couple of seconds.
Perfect.
So maybe one last question before we go to priorities?
Sure. Elizabeth asks if you recommend creating a schedule for the entire week.
Oh, more than that. Oh, more than that. I would recommend creating a schedule. You should have a forward schedule. I mean, like I said, planning gives you more flexibility. The more you plan, 1 hour of planning saves 4 hours at the end of the day. Think about any project in the society. When they build a bridge, they spend a lot of time planning, because when you execute, then it's less expensive, right? If you make a mistake in planning, it's less costing than in execution. So planning, it's an added value task. You should plan your days. You should plan ahead. You should even know, if you can, look ahead of time and see, for example, you have this big sales meeting in July. Well, you should already plan for it, I don't know, maybe a month earlier than that, and then take events and then bring it up in your schedule. But it is important to plan as far as you can your day, leaving room for interruptions again, and doubling the time you think it will take.
Perfect. Well, we're good to get back into it. And I will just say that there's been lots of positive feedback on the tips that you've been offering. So everyone's really appreciative of it. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I have my two favorite tools coming up. Well, my favorite tool coming up in terms of priority. So let's go with priorities. Some of you have seen this square of priorities. It is one of the most studied tool or used tool, or I mean, you cannot have a time management training without seeing that tool. This tool, so I'll show you two different ways of using priorities. So the first one is how to assess. It's more of a strategic tool. So this tool, the priority squares, it's meant to see that things are urgent or not urgent, important versus not important. At the junction of that, so urgent and important, you have quadrant 1. Not urgent but important, you have quadrant 2. Urgent, not important, 3, and not urgent, not important, 4. So those 4 quadrants are so important. Quadrant 1, what is urgent and important? Your crisis. Probably at the beginning of COVID, you had to make sure you could work remote, set up your offices at home, set up your internet, set up your, what are you going to use? Will it be Teams, Zoom, Slack, whatever? So it was a crisis, it was urgent. You didn't have time to pick fights on stuff and then do small stuff. No, everyone was in quadrant number 1. Quadrant number 1, you know in your job, what is your quadrant number 1? And those are really things that you stop everything and you focus on that. But it is quite, how can I say it in English, tiring. So it drives, it demands a lot of energy. You'll be tired at the end of the day. Quadrant number 1 is one that requires a lot of energy. If you think of firefighters, for example, they're not fighting a fire every second of their day. So nobody should be in quadrant number 1 all the time, except, like I said, beginning of the crisis, for example. So there's a study that has been made with people that have the most success in the world. And that show, of course, we could debate on what's the definition of success. It doesn't matter right now, not for today. So we are spending 25 to 30% of our time in quadrant number 1. Like I said, not all of our time. So approximately 25 to 30% of our time, where people that have the most success in the world spend 20 to 25% in quadrant number 1. Not bad. 5 to 10% difference. We're okay. We're not spending our time always on quadrant number 1. Thank God. So it's perfect. Let's see the other quadrants. Quadrant number 2, not urgent but important. This is, for me, this is the investment quadrant. This is, you should get return on your investment. When you invest your time, you get a return. That's quadrant number 2. That's our star quadrant. The star quadrant requires you for things that are not urgent but important. So any preparation, planning, prevention. So think about the firefighters. It's never urgent to go in schools and to talk about how to prevent fires, but it is important, because if they don't do that, they'll be back in square 1 really more often. So quadrant number 2, investment quadrant. It's also improvement, continuing improvement. A lot of things that I can think of, anything that brings you investment on the time you've spent there. So we are spending about 15% of our time there, where it should be 65 to 80%. Oh my God, we're not spending enough time on quadrant number 2. Where are we spending our time? We're spending our time in quadrant number 3, the spending quadrant. Things that we treat as being urgent but are not important. Probably 95% of our emails, we respond right away. We do ping pong of emails. Rewrite novels. You guys are writing novels, and then people are reading novels when they receive your emails, or collective emails. and probably things are not necessarily important. Interruptions also, some meetings, corridor requests are things that we treat as being urgent, but when you think about it, are they so important? When you de-zoom, if I can use the expression de-zooming, when you unzoom, when you zoom out. When you zoom out of it, then you say, well, was it really important? At the end of the day, did I really manage things that were important, or did I manage things that were only urgent? It's really important, because we are spending 50 to 60% of our time the spending quadrant, meaning that your time will never get back. And it should be 15%. We have to switch from quadrant 3 to number 2, and it is what is bringing value to organizations. So let's say you're answering, I don't know, your customers are always asking the same questions on your portal. Well, while you're answering those questions, you're at quadrant number 3. If you're revisiting your portal, doing your website, then you're spending your time in number 2, because people then will not ask the same questions. The training of today, is it 3 or 2? I'm sure if I would have done a polling, most of you would say, oh, it's quadrant number 2 at training. Of course, training is number 2. I would say it depends on you. If you sit with me with an hour and you don't change anything, and you don't pick up any tips, and you don't reflect on your time, and there's no change, then it will be number 3. It was not important. You didn't change anything. You spent your time, didn't get a return out of it. But if you really try and implement one tool, implement one aspect, change one thing, then it will become quadrant number 2. You will have invested your time with me. So this tool is not meant to be, so try to understand that it's not a tool that's meant to be perfectly used, if I can put it this way, meaning that you shouldn't spend more time understanding the matrix than the investment it will give you. So how I like this tool to be used, and I'm not even talking about quadrant number 4, because I'm sure you've seen already, only spending 2 to 3 times, and it should be 1%. And in fact, when I ask people, what do you do all day? People work. You work hard. You work a lot. You're just not working in the right quadrant. You should be working in quadrant number 2. My recommendation for this tool, every 3 months, first do a self-assessment. So, and what you want to do is really take up 2 or 3 things, not more than that. So it shouldn't take you a lot of time to do that reflection, that thinking. 2 or 3 things for quadrant number 3 that you could switch to quadrant number 2, and then you do it, you actually do it. By doing that, that's the added value of the tool. Because I've had engineers asking me, well, should I write everything that I spent in whatever quadrant and calculate the time? No, you'll spend your time and you'll be in quadrant number 3. It doesn't bring any value. Use this tool to bring you value, and to really have 2 or 3 things that you can now work on: processes, procedures, training, any continuing improvement that you want to do, continuous improvement you want to do in your processes, and that will bring you to quadrant number 2. So that's the first one. You do a self-assessment. The second way, which is even better, do that as a team together every 3 months. So just go through the matrix again, invest on procedure, processes that you have in quadrant 3 that you have to move in quadrant 2, improving them, working on it, and then you're investing your time. So this activity with a team, 15 minutes, once everyone knows the matrix, brings you to a whole other level in terms of teamwork. So those are my suggestion for you for the strategic priorities. Let's go with the tactic priorities. So on your day-to-day, you could have priority A, B, and C. A's are the things that are urgent, that cannot wait. You have to do it today, tomorrow. B can wait a couple of weeks. It doesn't have an impact necessarily right now, so it can wait a bit. And C, well, you have a lot of time in front of you. And I hear you people say, I hear you, those ones that are still with me, I only have A's. I only have A's. I'm always in priority A. I have a trick for you. Then go with category A1, A2, A3, B, and C. For some of you, having only 3 categories, A, B, and C, it's hard to bring something from A to B. I can understand that. Then go with 5. So A1, A2, A3, B, and C. And you'll feel more comfortable, but still you can prioritize. You have to make a choice when you do your priorities. And one common mistake is that people only do priority A's. So the secret, the trick is every day you have to do priorities A. You have to do a little bit of B and a little bit of C. If you don't touch your B and C's, they will eventually become A's, and that hurts. When a priority C becomes an A, it hurts the schedule, it hurts the added value. So it is really important to prioritize on a day-to-day. This could be used, the system can be used with every task that you need to do. And then you make sure that you touch upon your C's every day, if possible. Of course, the first days of the COVID, we didn't have time to work for the C, and that was normal. But now that we've been doing it for a while, now you should be able to work a bit on your C's. So to conclude, before we go back to you for a final set of questions, it's important to know yourself. How do you work? How do you function? What's your energy level? What do you like about your time? Are you procrastinating stuff? Are you good at making the right choice at the right moment? So know your time management style. Choose one thing from today to modify and put it into practice. Be patient. It is so personal, so that change is hard to do. Changing our methods in terms of time management takes time. So, and you need the willingness to change. So it needs to hurt to make it change. If it doesn't hurt enough, you won't have the incentive to change, because the change will be harder than whatever you're feeling. So I hope you understand what I mean by that. Olivia, I'm ready for you. We have 8 minutes to conclude and go with questions.
Perfect. Well, first off, thank you so much, Sophie. Kathy mentioned that she's a teacher and she's starting online teaching, and so this workshop has really helped her. So to start off,
Wow.
thank you. Roberto and Lucy are asking if maybe you can help define the difference between an interruption versus an urgent request, because people have varying definitions of what something urgent is.
Well, first of all, interruptions. And interruptions, whether it's an emergency or something not important, if it interrupts you and it wasn't planned, it's the same it hurts your schedule. So first things, both of them, whether it's an interruption or an emergency, you have to plan time in your schedule for that, even though you don't know what will be the emergency. Then when you look at the emergencies, well, you have to, again, come back to the question of choice. And you have to look at it from a different angle. So for something that's important, so an emergency needs to be also important. So you have to maybe look at it from your client's perspective, or your boss's perspective, or the CEO's perspective, or the owner's perspective. In fact, you're being paid to do a job. So where is the best use of that time and values and competencies? And if you have to choose between two things, are you choosing according to the right priority? And again, look at it from a different angle, because something important for you may not be what's important for the company or the department. So you have to look at it from a different angle for making the right choice.
Wonderful. And that actually transitions nicely into the next question from Marcia, who asks, what do you recommend when your boss is the main cause of your interruptions because everything from your boss is considered urgent?
Well, first I would have a discussion. So I would go into quadrant number 2. So first thing, you've invested 1 hour in this webinar. I'm sure your boss is aware of it. It's probably within your time of work. So I would just have a discussion with this person and say, hey, you know what? I've learned a lot of tips and tools, and can we work differently? So capitalize on that. And then discussing would be quadrant number 2, discussing how we manage our time. And I used to have a boss like that, that was always pressing and urgent stuff. Well, I have clients like that, and it's always a matter of being urgent. And so I give them a deadline. I reassure them. So I take, like I say, I recognize that I've received the demand. So, and then I tell them, well, I will get back to you on that time. So most of the people, they just send stuff and just send requests. Doesn't mean they expect you to deliver the same in 15 minutes from when they send the email. So it's up to you again, then to establish your priorities and then come back to this person and say, well, I will get back to you at that time. But be reliable. If you say, I'll get back to you tomorrow morning, come back tomorrow morning. Be reliable on your time and the schedule and the information you provide.
Perfect. So going back into an office environment, Marie, Maria, and Joanna all had the same question around an open floor concept and how it's difficult when you don't have a door to close, when you have colleagues or potentially newer employees constantly coming up to your desk asking you questions. Do you have a recommendation for that type of environment?
Yeah, well, will we get back to that type of environment? We'll see. We'll have to learn to live with COVID. I'm not sure there's going to be an after COVID. There's going to be with COVID. But if we go further in that respect, of course, it's also about teaching people. So having a discussion in a group, when to interrupt, when not to interrupt, putting a small sign on your partition on your desk saying, well, do not disturb. But I would have a group meeting, discussing it, because chances are you are also interrupting them and you're also doing stuff that interrupts them. So having this discussion together, how can we less interrupt ourselves, would be time well spent in quadrant number 2. There's nothing like asking people, telling people, understanding each other's reality, and maybe you can assign an amount of time for that person and saying, well, maybe we should discuss 15 minutes together instead of interrupting us ourselves all the time.
That's great. And that actually makes me think of a past webinar that we had for any of you on who are parents. If you have children who are interrupting you, we've had one of our speakers recommend wearing a scarf or a certain color. And so, if mommy or daddy are wearing this color, not to interrupt. And then when we take the scarf off or whatever it is, then you can go and ask mommy your question, whatever it is.
Yeah, some people put earphones and listen to music.
That's
exactly.
Great. Okay, so we'll do one final question. Christine wants to know how effective a running to-do list is and if there's a way to make it more efficient.
I could go on for hours on that topic. Invest time in understanding how tasks work in Outlook, really to put tasks there. That would be my greatest advice, making sure that it fits within your schedule. But when you have to know how to walk before running. So first thing, plan your stuff in your agenda, not only the meetings, but also so in your calendar, also when you want to do stuff. And then you'll be able to plan accordingly. Put a color associated with the priority. But every day you have to replan and plan and replan. It's always important to do that. Really important to keep that in mind. So I don't know if I was able to answer that in the small amount of time that I had.
Great. Thank you so much, Sophie. So we do want to be mindful of everyone's time. So can I ask you to maybe put the slides back up and we can close this out, conclude exactly. So a few people have asked, and we will be sending you all an email in the coming weeks with a recording of this session, as well as with a PDF of Sophie's slides. So thank you, Sophie, for being so generous to offer those to our participants. We truly appreciate your feedback. So please let us know in the chat box, did this webinar meet your expectations? Or you can send me an email at olivia.picciarelli@concordia.ca. And we are pleased to be able to continue bringing you valuable virtual content. So keep your eyes peeled for our email invitations. In terms of upcoming webinars, tomorrow we will be offering Sustainability in a COVID World. On May 21st, the benefits of mindfulness in a time of crisis. And then on May 27th, COVID-19 versus the economy. Also, don't forget to connect with the CCE on social media and browse through their various trainings and workshops. If you enjoyed today's webinar with Sophie, she will be offering other virtual CCE workshops in May and June. On May 15th, Multiply and Extend Your Leadership. On May 29th, Strategic Task Delegation. And on June 10th, Maximize Your Influential Power. Those all sound really interesting. And I've included a link in the chat box for you to be able to check those out. So we do admire the support, encouragement, and resilience of our Concordia community. I wish you all a fantastic rest of the day. Please stay safe and stay strong. Merci again, Sophie and Evelyn, and goodbye, everybody.